Alright, this is an initial impression review, I guess, of the Carver C-9. So, saw this on Canuck Audio Mart, listed for $100 on the Lower Mainland. I live on Vancouver Island. And I used to play with these things. Actually, I used to sell these things way back when, in the early 80s, when I used to work in a hi-fi shop overseas in Lahr, West Germany, which is a Canadian military base that's since closed down in the early 90s. And we sold a whole host of really neat equipment, including the quad series of gear that I just recently obtained here, and which I have started to modify and to update. So you can see the 405.2 amp. I had the caps upgraded, and of course all of the capacitors, resistors, and transistors, and a whole bunch of other nice stuff, including the connecting cords on the back, or the jacks on the back, banana jacks, I guess you call them. And so we used to play with these things a lot, and we had the full lineup of Carver, the Cube, the 1.5, the 1.0T, and the M400T, which is the Cube, and the preamp series, of course, which had the sonic hologram generators built in. So, and we used to play in the sound rooms, and one of the neat things about the Carver, they call it the Sonic Hologram Generator Model C-9, which you see right here, is the fact that it nullifies or cancels some of the multipath and returns that you get in your ears from the speaker system, the arrivals that you get in your ears. Now, Bob Carver has an interview on YouTube that I strongly urge everybody to watch. It's a Home Stereo Geeks interview. It's about 55 minutes long. In it, about halfway through, he actually discusses this the phenomenon of this Carver C-9 sonic hologram generator, which he actually still carries on in some of his newer product line. As you know, he sold out Carver, so he no longer can use his own name. So I believe he runs or is involved with Sunfire, which is the latest and high-end audio gear that he's involved with. Before Carver, it used to be Phase Linear, and a number of other companies that he's associated himself with. And one of the interesting things about the sonic hologram generator is the fact that it makes a much more expansive sound field, one that actually is three-dimensional instead of your typical two-dimensional curtain that you get with a conventional stereo system. So what it adds is, normally you would get a wall of sound in front of you, and yes, you'd have your imaging that you can, basically say, okay, my singer's over there, my bass guy is over there, my keyboardist is over there, depending on how the engineer recorded the track or whatever, and my drummer's in behind. But it used to be a 2D field, so if the drummer was in behind the singer, it would sound like the drummer and the singer are sort of coming from the same place. Well, with this little baby, and with the proper recordings, of course, what it does is it actually adds depth and a much wider sound field to the speaker, to your stereo system. So instead of being confined with an image that goes from speaker to speaker that's a flat 2D curtain, now you have a three-dimensional curtain that allows you to hear some people in the background, in the foreground, and a soundstage that actually extends beyond the speakers, as it was truly envisioned with live performances. So, does this do it? Absolutely. Does it do it in every room and in every stereo situation? Absolutely not. I would urge you to go online if you're interested in something like this and grab the manual. And it actually has a very good primer on his hologram technology and how it works and why it works as well as it does. But it's very, very specific to where your speakers are placed, the type of room that you have. Like, for instance, I've got this thing hooked up, and yeah, it makes a difference the way I have it set up here. However, it doesn't make the big difference that we used to experience back overseas. Now, I've played with this thing upstairs in my main system and in my living room, and if you set the system up like Mr. Carver recommends, then yes, you get an amazing soundstage. And the only thing is, sometimes it's hard to convince wifey that you want to rearrange a sound, one of your living rooms or your sound rooms or whatever, a space in your house, to meet the requirements of the setup of this particular unit. So I know that I can do it for short periods of time, but I think my wife would probably kick me out of the house if I started making, say, our living room is actually the best for this place, and turned that into a sound studio. But anyway, even in the relative confines of this particular room that you see here, which is my man cave, and it's not particularly well suited for acoustics anyway, but, and you can see that it's got some carpeting, but it is in the basement, so you can see that it's pretty reflective when it comes to acoustics. Anyway, it does, like when I'm sitting in the sweet spot, it does actually make for a more expansive soundstage, and it's worth the $100 I paid for it. So, and I'm not even going to bother really playing it. I've got some radio playing right now, but with a mono recording coming from my phone, all you're going to hear is music. You're not going to hear the presentation or the stage, the construction of the stage and how well it sounds in an imaging perspective from a single microphone camera system. So just trust that yes, it is a really neat technology. I would go and watch that interview on Stereo Home Geeks and determine for yourself whether it's something you would want to try out. Because I think it's, considering that there's quite a few of these were sold back in the day, you can actually get them fairly inexpensively. And a lot of people do recap them and the whole 9 yards and make them new again. So I would highly recommend getting, let's get this thing to focus a little better. There we go. Carver Sonic Hologram Generator Model C-9. Interestingly enough, one of the drawbacks to this little unit is the fact it has no power button. So basically you have to hook it into the switched socket outlet of a preamp or an integrated amp or receiver that you have, so that when you turn the power on and power off on your unit, it turns the power on and off for this. That's how it was actually designed to be built. And it hooks in between your preamp and power amp. If you have a receiver, no problem, and it doesn't have a pre-ins or pre-outs and main ins, or an integrated amp with pre-outs or main ins. If you don't have a separate, the ability to separate the preamp from the power amp, you can actually plug it in to a normal tape loop and then monitor it through a tape loop. In this case, I have Quad 44 preamp, Quad 405-2 amplifier. So basically what I've done is from the pre-out here to the main in, I've put this in between. And really not a lot of controls to choose from. And again, let me get this focused. You basically have Sonic Hologram on or off. And as you see, I've got it on right now. Depressed. If it's out, it's disengaged. Sorry, if I had it off. If you engage it, you push it in. That's where I had it. It's hard to see dimension in this video screen. Anyway, and then you have wide and narrow for a listening aperture, and that's just a personal preference. And injection ratio normal or theoretical. And for the setup in the manual, it recommends going to theoretical, trying that first, and then just playing with the combination thereof to find out what works best for you. So there you have it, my short, well, maybe not so short, but sweet first impressions review of the Carver C-9. And as I mentioned, I have lots of experience with this particular unit, so it's not really a first impressions because I've played with them quite a bit. So if you have any questions, PM me or send me a little note in the comments below this video, and I'll try to answer any questions you might have. Thanks for watching.